This recording is to assist with the Spot the Hazards Activity 5 in the OHS unit. The first requirement is for you to identify the class of hazard. To do this, first we select the hazard. In this instance, we are going to choose the hazard of someone standing on a stool which then has books on it to reach the top of the shelf. There are several classes of hazards and hierarchy of control measures. The classes of hazards include physical, chemical, physiological, mechanical, electrical, or biological. In this instance, the person standing on the stool would be physical. So when we classify this task or hazard, it is a physical hazard. That's because it relates to manual handling and ergonomics, as well as such things as ladders or falling objects. The next task is to assess the risk of injury using the hierarchy of control handout. What we are wanting to do is to assess the likelihood of this risk and whether it should be a high risk, a low risk, or a medium risk. We should use the risk assessment table. Firstly, we would look at the consequences. Could this activity, that is someone standing on a stool with books on it, be a fatal consequence? Or could it result in a major injury or illness, such as physical harm, requiring medical intervention and ongoing treatment? Or alternatively, would it be a minor injury or illness, or negligible injury? In this case, we would probably select that it could result in a major injury or illness. That is, if the person was to fall off the stool, they could require medical intervention and ongoing treatment. We then need to look at the probability of this incident happening, or the likelihood of the occurrence. For example, is it very likely that this person is going to fall off the stool? Is it likely that this could happen occasionally, or is it unlikely to happen at all, or highly unlikely? In this instance, the probability of the person falling off the stool is between likely and very likely. So, knowing that the consequence is a 2, that is, it's a major injury or illness that's likely to happen, and the probability of that is either likely or very likely, we then need to look at the assessment matrix. So therefore, we can, if we look at major injury illness and move along to very likely and likely, we can see that this is a high risk hazard. So when recording it in our Spot the Hazards activity, our risk assessment will show that it is a physical class of hazard and the risk assessment will be high. The next thing we need to do is control the hazard. You can manage risks in the workplace using a hierarchy of controls. As the name suggests, the controls are measured that should be applied, and they should be applied in sequence. This means that if the first option is not available, then you can choose the next. If you can't eliminate a piece of equipment, for example, because it is vital to the operation of the business, you should then choose the next best option. You may find that on occasion you will need a combination of controls to control the hazard. There are 5 options to use when using the hierarchy of control. These are elimination, substitution, engineering, administrative, and personal protective clothing. You should download the handout that gives you a good description of each of these hierarchies of control measures. In this situation, the best option is to eliminate the stool. Eliminating the problem during the process or removing or replacing an item of equipment is a far more effective proposition. You may then need to organise a substitution. So in this instance, the person might be better off using a ladder. But as you can see, this person is also is lifting at great heights, so that might also require some engineering to ensure that the filing is done at lower height. Another thing that you might want to look at is an administrative control, that is, educating your staff on the proper procedures for manual handling. I hope you have found this example useful for when you need to classify hazards, assess their risk, and then apply the control. If you have any more questions, please speak with your lecturer.